Hello, my name is Michael Rather from the Digital Photography Connection, and in this tutorial we're going to be looking at how you can color correct your images by using a curves adjustment. Let's have a quick look at the image we're going to be working on today. Here it is right here, and this is the image before we've made any color correction to it. And once we've made our color correction, we're going to go from this image to this image by using a curves adjustment. Now there are two ways that you can put a curves adjustment on your image. One, you can do that by just coming up under the image menu, dropping down to adjustments, and then selecting curves. In fact, let me bring my layers palette here into view. I'll go ahead and select the layer that I want to work on. I could come to image, adjustments, and then down to curves. But this is not what we want to do. We actually want to create a curves adjustment layer, as you see here in my layers palette. Let me go ahead and get rid of this correction layer right here. I'm just going to click on it and tap the delete key on my keyboard. I happen to be working in Photoshop CS5, and that gives me the ability to go ahead and select that layer and actually delete it by hitting the delete key. If you're using earlier versions of Photoshop, you're going to have to grab that layer and drag it down to the trash can shown here at the bottom of the layers palette. Now there's a couple things that we need to do to set this up. First, we need to come over to our eyedropper tool, and you can get there by tapping the I key on the keyboard or just selecting it here in the tool palette. Now, one of the things about the eyedropper tool you'll note is in the lower right hand corner of the eyedropper tool icon, you'll see a little triangle, and that means we've got tools underneath this tool. So I'm going to click and hold my mouse down, and as I do, it's going to reveal all the tools that are underneath the eyedropper tool. I'm going to select the color sampler tool because this is the one we're going to be working with right at the moment. And so I'll go ahead and click on that, and you can see that my tool in the tools palette now has changed to the color sampler tool. Now once we have the color sampler tool selected, we need to focus our attention in the upper bar, the options bar up here, because our sample size shipped by default with Photoshop is point sample. And that means anywhere that I click on the image, it's only going to get a sample of 1 pixel, and that's not going to be enough for our purposes of what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to click the drop down box right here, and you can see all the choices that I have. And I'm going to go ahead for this tutorial and select a 3x3 average. So that's going to sample a radius of 3 pixels by 3 pixels and give me the average sample color of what's going on with the actual point that I click on. Next, what I want to do is I want to come to the bottom of the layers palette. Now I'm going to move my layers palette up here just a little bit so you can see all the options. But I'm going to click here on this black and white circle, and right at the very bottom you're going to see an adjustment called threshold, and we want to select threshold, and when we do, our image is going to turn into this black and white image, and this image is going to represent or show us the tonal values of the image from our blacks to our white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the threshold slider all the way to the left, and when I do, you'll notice that I've got a little black clipping going on. In fact, you can see some black right here in the image where this is actually pure black. It's not going to register anything other than pure black. There's no detail here in the image. And what I want to do is I want to begin moving this off here just a little bit from that and getting to the point where I just start seeing some black come into view. And I like this area right down here that I want to select on. Now I want to zoom into this area, so I'm just going to tap the Z key, and that's going to go ahead and let me zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to just click, move my pointer and the cursor and select this black area. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. I'm actually going to use a keyboard shortcut of Command or Control 0. That's going to zoom me out, and I can come back in slightly by just tapping the plus key. Next, we want to find our highlights, our brightest areas, and I'm going to just start moving this in, and there's an area right up here in the clouds that I think I can get a good selection on. I'll go ahead and tap the Z key, and we'll go ahead and move into this area, and then I'm going to go ahead and make my sample point. So now I have 2 sample points. Once again, I'll tap the Control 0 or Command 0, and then I'll just tap the plus key a couple times to go ahead and enlarge that. Now we're done with this threshold adjustment. We just used it to find our deepest blacks and our brightest highlights without going to actual pure black or pure white. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw this layer away by dumping it into the trash can. But I still have these registration marks. In fact, I'm going to enlarge that just a little bit more. And let me go ahead and extend out here our layers palette. Now what we want to do is apply our curves adjustment layer, and to do that I'm just going to click here on this black and white circle, and I'm going to select curves. And when I do, I'm going to get the adjustment box right here, and you'll notice in our curves adjustment dialog box we've got 3 eyedropper tools. We've got white, gray, and we also have our blacks. I'm going to go ahead and select back here on our color sampler tool. We need to make sure to be on that to see these registration points. So what I want to do is I'm going to click first on this white eye sampler here, and I'm just going to go ahead and click right in the center of this white registration mark that we made. Next, I'm going to go to the black adjustment, and I'm going to go ahead and select here for my black setting. That didn't do a whole lot to the image, but you can see that it made some change. And then finally, we need to find an area of neutral gray with this image. Now I can see some gray here in the clouds. There's some gray down here in some of the water areas, but I think I'm going to focus up here in the clouds here for a moment. I'm going to click on the gray eyedropper, and we want to get neutral gray in this image, anywhere in this image. And I'm going to go ahead and just click about right here, and as soon as I do, you can see that the image all of a sudden pops. Now if it's not the colors that you want, if it's a little bit too warm or a little bit too cool, then go ahead and select another point if you like. You can also experiment with some of the other areas in the image to see if there's a point you like better. And of course, when you're in this dialog box, you can always turn the visibility off by clicking this eyeball. This is before and this is after. And I think I kind of like what I'm seeing here as far as the color correction goes for this image. And once you're all set, I'll go ahead and just close this adjustment panel out. We can now see that here is our before and our after, and we did this all by just using a curves adjustment layer. Now to get rid of these sample points, you just need to get off of the sample tool, and those points will disappear, and there you have your corrected image.